Hi, folks. Welcome to Monday's edition of the I Write Radio podcast Videocast. Jimmy Hutton with us today, Stuart Lockhead.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, not a new member of the group, but Phil Attridge was with us for a long time and then basically run out of things to say. So buggered off into La La Land. Today, we're basically going to cover Brexit, how it affects the SNP, how it affects the Labour Party, and how it affects everybody. And there he is. He's away. I've hurt his feelings, and he's gone already.
No. Can we smoke? Are we allowed to smoke?
No, we're not allowed to smoke. This is a proper professional setup. I'll have you know. I think if we were allowed to smoke, Jimmy and I wouldn't be puffing away already.
Yeah, I wondered that. Well, I was just going to encourage you.
Okay, so we're going to kick off with Brexit. Well, we won't. We'll kick off with Brexit and the Labour Party and the SNP, shall we? The Labour Party are going to be whipped to vote for the bill in Westminster on Wednesday. The SNP have stated that they will vote against it rather than abstain. What are you thinking, James?
Yeah. I think they're both making mistakes for various reasons. Don't know why Labour would vote for it. I have no idea why Labour would vote for it, because that just means that they're backed into a corner every time they whinge about anything that's happened because they've voted for the bill. I don't know why the SNP want to vote against it, because it's clearly being framed as the SNP voting for no deal, and their insistence that what they're actually voting for is not Brexit at all because they want to remain members is just idiocy, because we haven't been member state for the entirety of this year. So frankly, I think that the Tories, this is the net Tory government, and their net deal that they've come back with is when they sail through the House because the opposition parties couldn't find their arse with two hands and an assist.
Well, Labour, to support it, that'll come back to haunt them so much, particularly up here. I mean, they're a very rare species now. I mean, there's only one flittering about in the House of Commons, and I think most of them are list in the Scottish Parliament. Abstain, but even voting against. I mean, do you want to leave the EU? Scotland want to leave? If you don't believe in something, then you don't vote for it. And if you abstain, that means you're ambivalent about it. So in other words, you agree with it. So, I mean, if you're in opposition, you're in opposition. Labour's losing out. SNP, well, I think the SNP should take actually they want to be an independent country. Well, take the next door. When they want to be an independent country, it's got nothing to do with us. We're not coming. They should just...
Do you think it should walk out?
Yep, should walk out. Nothing to do with them, kidnapped.
Stuart?
I'd go with Jim, Phil on that. I think they should, presumably they've got four options: for or against, and abstain or not actually be there. I assume abstain is actually an official position that you take in the House of Commons. I'm sure you can't do nothing without, I think to abstain, you almost certainly have to do something, do you?
I think you just don't have to vote.
Okay. Also, it matters quite a lot that they're now recalling Holyrood for a vote on Wednesday as well. So that will matter as far as the SNP is concerned. What way are they going to vote on Wednesday? They're going to vote against in Holyrood, aren't they?
Well, I would think so.
Right.
Can't see. I mean, I think that's as much of a reason why they're going to vote against at Westminster, because they're expecting the result at Holyrood to be against. I take Jimmy's point that the media will use a vote against by the SNP as a bat. They will try and turn it into which is the point that Wings makes today in his piece, that they'll use it as a bat to beat them with, because they'll claim it's voting for a no deal. But no deal isn't on the ballot paper. I don't see what else the SNP could have done. I don't think abstention would have been strong enough. As for the Labour Party, by voting for it, have let the Tories off the hook.
It's going to be a virtual vote, isn't it? It's going to be, they're not going to assemble at Westminster for this vote, are they?
No, well, because of COVID, they can't. But the Labour Party have basically allowed the Tories an easy victory by supporting this. The Tories don't have to own it now. Every time there's a complaint, they can just point to Labour voting in favour. Jimmy?
They've also let them off the hook with their internal divisions. We don't know how the ERG feel about this deal. We don't know how the right wing of the Tory party feel about this deal at all, but effectively it's going to pass regardless. What is a Tory project will pass on the back of Labour vote, regardless of how the internal machinations of the Conservative Party work. So Keir Starmer has handed Boris Johnson a free pass, and he's allowed the right wing of the Tory party not to create too many ructions over this, even if they're not happy about it. So it's a lose-lose for Labour.
How many are the ERG going to get? I mean, they need 40. If Labour abstain, they need 41, I think.
I don't know, mate. I didn't care
that's with Labour's support.
We don't know. The ERG are like most people are still reading through the fine print and going, hold it, this bit's a bit crap. This bit's a bit of nonsense. Is
it not quite interesting, though? It allows the ERG to vote against it at no cost.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting that the only serious opposition at Westminster now is the ERG. They're inside the governing party.
That's why I didn't think the SNP should even turn up. I think they should.
I agree with you, Jimmy.
Brexit's an English project. It's an English Tory project. Let it be passed by English Tories. Didn't bother turning up and saying, by the way, this is terrible for Scotland. We know it's terrible for Scotland. And didn't announce it as principled and saying you're voting against the idea of Brexit. You're not. You're voting against the deal that Boris brought back. We already have Brexited. This is just about the I's and the T's.
I don't think they have a choice. I think they have to vote against it. Stuart?
You do. Oh no, I was just waiting to hear your opinion on it because so far you haven't made it clear.
Well,
you just did.
What worries me most, to be honest with you, is I'm disagreeing with Wings, and Wings is never wrong.
In the long term, he's never wrong.
So but I do feel that they have to take a principled stance on this. I like the idea of them voting against it and then walking out, or being in the chamber to walk out before the vote.
That's maybe what they should do, but I can't. They won't do that. They're pussies.
As for Labour, Labour's voting for this. Why? Do they think it'll bring back Brexiteers to them, Phil?
No, I think it's just Starmer. I think Starmer's starting to make, he's only been there hardly there 2 minutes, start to make Tony Blair look like a bit of a pussycat. He thinks he's a dictator. He's telling them. He's just sacking people left. It's not the Labour Party. I'm not looking at the Labour Party. It's been completely taken over. And who is Starmer anyway? And why would he support the Tories? You mean his ex-employees when he was DPP?
Why is the left of the Labour Party not as effective as the right of the Labour Party in attacking the leader?
Quite simply, the right of the Labour Party has the might of the UK press behind it and is driven by the might of the UK press. The right of the Labour Party is effectively the Tory party. So when they go for a left-wing leader, they all go in together, boots first.
But the right have always, the right's always been there in the Labour Party. And it's an imperialistic, totally straight through to its hobnob boots, British imperialist, which our fellow countrymen are going to probably find out in the next few years. Starmer is just something else, actually. Don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, let's stick with Brexit a bit longer. How long is it going to take for the bad news of this deal to filter through?
Well, I don't think we'll get too much until
Won't be that long.
Second week in January, I think by that time we'll be really in the middle of it, because as I was kind of said yesterday, the trouble is the date of the announcement, Christmas Eve, was quite carefully choreographed by the Tories. Senior people that make decisions in the media, senior politicians that make decisions, they never work over Christmas holidays. So yeah, there are people in the office, but not the people that make the decisions.
Well, there's certainly been 2 or 3 people working quite hard on this over Christmas.
Oh, aye, there's been individuals, but the bulk of them won't be there. They never are at this time of year. This is the smaller silly season at the moment. The big one's August, but this is still the other one.
So you reckon it'll be that quick? You reckon we'll see it in January?
I think they'll have people on the job in England from tomorrow, because today is a bank holiday there, because they didn't get Boxing Day. So there'll be people back on the job from tomorrow in England, analysing 1,246 pages. I mean, I'm looking at, with reference to that, I was looking at Rishi Sunak. I mean, they've been asking him about, he's been sprouting rubbish about, oh yeah, the financial services deal, it'll be okay. You know, it'll be all right in the mix, but you know, it's just promises.
There is no financial services deal.
Exactly, but he's you know, he's waving a flag saying, "Oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine." He's a wee flag.
But the big banks, clearinghouses that are based here from America, they're heading off to Europe. They're all heading off to Europe. There's 300,000 French citizens live in London and the southeast that work. Oh, I wonder how many of them are left now that work in financial services, insurance, everything else. I mean, it's huge. I mean, services in this country is 80% of the total GDP. It's not just the finance services, all the other services when you get into entertainment.
Well, this is it. This is the other thing. This is the other thing, Phil. It's discovering the obvious statistics. It's 80% of GDP. It's 50% of exports, of the value of UK exports, but it's only 8% of our trade with the EU.
I thought it was 80% of our trade with the EU.
No, it's 80% of UK GDP.
But it's most of the plus, you know, the plus side of export and import is apparently hugely beneficial to our GDP as an export.
Yeah, but that's mostly, I think that is mostly already international. When you think about it, most of the money in finance and banking is made by places like the Cayman Islands and Singapore, Hong Kong it was too. And that the dreams of the ERG and their pals is that London becomes the biggest of them all, the biggest offshore, you know, money laundering place in the world.
Biggest target for the EU. It'll be.
Well, the EU, that the restraints on money deals comes into force for the EU on the 1st of January. So Rees-Mogg and his pals will be wiping the sweat from their brow with a big smile. Jimmy, you got anything you want to have a poke at today?
I'll be interested to see tomorrow's figures on COVID in Scotland, given that we haven't had any figures since the 22nd.
Will tomorrow's figures be worthwhile, or is it too soon?
Well, it's the only set of figures we're getting, Stuart.
It'll be Wednesday before we get anything worthwhile. I think even Tuesday's not reliable figures either, or hasn't been over the last few weeks. So given it's been Christmas weekend, I wouldn't even rely on anything till Wednesday.
Have we got a briefing this week? Does anybody know?
Who knows, but we are having a set of figures announced tomorrow, that should be interesting, given that Tusker, talking up Scotland, seems to think there's a downward trend in Scottish infections over the last couple of weeks, and the trend in England is going to be massively up. Don't know if any of you seen the video of the bull ring in Birmingham on Boxing Day where they were fighting each other to get into the shops.
Oh, no.
Clearly, the explosion in infections in England is continuing, and it'll be interesting to see whether we have managed in any way to avoid what the chaos that's going to happen down there over the next couple of weeks.
Well, the Christmas chaos won't kick in for another week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, but
as far as
Norrie,
hospital beds are concerned.
Yeah, but
For
her
us,
reason,
I mean Scotland.
her reason for shutting us all down was an increasing trend that, in effect, peaked around about the 15th of December, and it certainly started to tail off.
I don't think she actually said that. I'm going to disagree with you there on that, Jimmy. She admitted that they didn't have figures just to back up coming in with a lockdown that they've come in with, but they were trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, she called it preventative. That's what she said.
That was called, okay.
Yeah, it was guesswork.
Well, no, she said it was preventative. That was in place to prevent what was happening in the southeast happening in Scotland.
When there was no indication whatsoever that what was happening in the southeast would happen in Scotland.
No, but that's kind of what the preventative bit's about, is it not?
So we'll see tomorrow whether the figures match our exciting lockdown.
The only way you'll be proved wrong is if there's a spike. Sorry, the only way she'll be proved wrong is if there's a spike. If nothing happens, you can be right and she can be right.
Hmm.
So
I just think there's some interesting narratives going on at the moment. Did you notice BBC News yesterday and today started quoting an entirely new organisation to drag Scotland into England's debacle, what they called the Partnership of Royal Colleges, which has never been heard of before. Clearly just made up by some think tank or pressure group who wanted to get themselves on the news and managed to get one boy for the Royal College of Surgeons to give them a quote.
In Scotland, they've got, they don't call it the Royal Colleges, they just call it a colleges group because it pulls together all the ones in Scotland. Some of them are called Royal and some of them aren't. So
this group that's been quoted for the last 24 hours on BBC News didn't exist a week ago.
That's interesting.
So I take it this is
something... What did you call it again, Jimmy? Partnership with what?
I think it was a partnership of Royal Colleges or something. The guy that was being quoted was from the Royal College of Physicians.
But this wasn't a Scottish thing. This was a UK thing.
No, it's a Scottish thing.
Okay, well, it is the same one that I heard of. I don't think the word royal. I think we're agreeing on what we'll agree on. It's not the word royal. It won't be in it, but it is the same thing.
Well, the Royal College of Physicians and the Royal College of Surgeons both have the Royal College word royal in them, Stuart.
But there's another one, like the Dundee one or something, are in it involved, and they're not royal or something.
What it says.
Anyway,
College of Surgeons. It's over 500 years old. That Royal College of Surgeons and all that long before. Oh, well, while the barber was giving you an operation in England, we had surgeons.
Can we get some idea of what their stance is, Jimmy? What's their position?
Well, what they're saying, and it was all conjecture, mate. What they were talking about a perfect storm that could drive us up to the point where the health service can't cope. And BBC Scotland were complicit in the entire story, running these visuals showing us that 230 beds out of our 360 ICU beds were already full, never mentioning at all the fact that Jason Leach has told us we could treble or quadruple our required ICU beds if and when required, but then that would cut back on other points. Never mentioned surge capacity at all. It was specifically scaremongering to try and drag us into what's happening in the southeast of England, where you've got ambulance services that are now telling you not to ring them unless it's an absolute emergency because they're having their busiest days of the year.
I always find it quite funny how political in a sense, politicking for their particular organization, the medical colleges can be. Mm-hmm. We need £80 billion because we're 12 top-notch surgeons short, and if we don't get them, the whole world will burn to the ground.
Yeah, aye. What they mean by that is we are desperate to promote 12 of our fellows.
Yeah.
So
And
give us some extra money, please.
They can be seriously partisan at times.
Oh, absolutely.
So I always kind of I always look at okay, what's in it for them angle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, bear in mind. Sorry,
it was interesting. It was only the guy for the physicians that was being interviewed or quoted yesterday. The nothing from the nurses or whatever. Absolutely nothing. They were, in fact, they probably weren't even.
Well, you see, the nurses college is really a union because they're a bit working class.
Aye.
So their opinion won't be worth as much as a Royal College opinion.
Absolutely not, and especially not a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians, after all, who would absolutely speak in a cut glass accent and be absolutely on first name terms with whoever at the BBC needed to be on first name terms with.
Edinburgh St Andrews University, obviously.
Well, these people are, bear in mind, when the NHS was set up, they were the last people that wanted to get involved in it. And you can bet your boots they're tied in with any possible privatisation. They're the ones already making the money.
To be fair, Stuart, not many of them would have been around then. Of the present crowd.
Fair enough.
You weren't around, Stuart. Even you weren't around then, Stuart.
I'm thinking about the fact that going way back to the guilds. You know, the guilds were around in medieval days. And these royal colleges are just the modern version of the guilds. Got nothing to do with unions.
Stuart, if you give me an anecdote of the days when you dealt with the guilds, I will actually cut you off. Is there any guilds left? I think, is there not a guild of something in London?
I'm sure they're still around.
I'm sure that
Guildhall, that's in the city, isn't it? Guildhall. And that's what it was all, the whole city of London is. Yeah, the city of London will be heaving with guilds.
There should surely be a guild of monopolists.
It's a guild of old boys clubs, that's all it is.
The New Club, of course. I mean, only Edinburgh would have a club called the New Club. Not the New something, just the New Club.
Well, right, Phil, come on, you pick a subject.
The delight of Europe and the demise of not so Great Britain. I don't know if you've been reading any of the European papers, but they're actually in stitches.
Of course, you're a new European fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I read the new European. Apart from that, anyway, my passport, and not the blue one, my real passport has EU on it. That's all right, you see, because
I don't know if it's true, but somebody was tweeting that the EU are going to change their passports to blue just to troll Britain.
You liked, and the British one's actually it's not blue, but as well, if you have a look, it's a bit in today's, I think it was George Caravan. What could affect is with Scotland, Northern Ireland, Ireland. You know, you've got that ring, a bit like the Benelux countries. Yeah, we should actually start being a bit more positive, and instead of just saying, you know, that whole bit, we want to get away, what you're doing, because they're already at it now. You know, they're bringing up the currency questions, what are we doing, and all the rest of it. But I suppose the Independence Party's getting a bit mature, it's starting to fight itself.
Do you know, I was thinking about this the other day. How many fishing boats do you think it would take to cut off between France and Ireland, because French waters must butt onto Irish waters, and Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Norway? We could trap the whole of the English Navy in the Channel if we played our cards right.
Didn't have to, mate. Just block Plymouth. About 90% of it sitting in there waiting for engines to be fitted into their boats that actually bloody work.
Have they fixed the leak on the aircraft carrier yet?
No.
A leak? What's it leaking?
It sprung a leak, apparently, and it's sprung the same leak about 4 times, I think. But Stuart, you're bound to have something there.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't. I was thinking about that phrase. You know, I've been using it a few weeks in a row about care homes and visitors there, but thinking about this Brexit vote.
Yeah,
coming up, you know, that phrase, damned if you do and damned if you don't. And as I say, I think Jimmy's right. I think they should they should be there. No, but they can't be there. This is the trouble. It's going to be a virtual vote. What? I don't know. Can they organise something?
Very difficult.
I'll wear a rose or something and take it off and throw it away undiscussed.
Difficult to organise a virtual walkout.
It is a bit.
You'd actually have to get a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and everybody stand up and walk out the room, whilst your cat pads its way across the keyboard.
Just to continue our debates on the future of the SNP, we've got 2 dates now in our diary for January. The 19th, when Alex Salmond will appear at the inquiry, and the 26th, when Nicola Sturgeon appears. So don't
what do you think?
Anything else?
What do you think the viewing figures for that will be?
Yeah, it'll break. But SPTV will break on the day that Alex Salmond appears in front of that committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I confidently predict that they will not manage to go.
Well, the other question is, Jimmy, what is he going to spill the beans?
This close to an election, I don't know. I think he probably will spill some, because at the end of the day, how many opportunities is he going to get?
He's actually, he can take a position of, I'm sorry, I can't answer that, due to the embargo on mentioning the ladies' names.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll see quite a lot of that. I honestly cannot see Alex Salmond intentionally burning down the house. Can he see it?
No, in January when there's an election in May, I think he'll hold his fire. I think, as I say, I think he'll trail his book, and he'll trail a couple of things that are going to come out later. But I'd imagine he wants, like the rest of us, regardless of whether we're fans of Nicola Sturgeon or not, we want a thumping election win in May, and he's not going to do anything to clear the pitch for that.
I can't say. I'd be very, very surprised and disappointed if he was to do it. But who knows?
I suppose one of the questions that remains is this going to be wound up at the end of January, this inquiry?
I have no idea.
I think it is. I think it's penciled in at least.
And
well,
at that point, they'll go away and write the report, won't they?
Yeah, well,
that'll take months.
Will Murdo or Alex Cole-Hamilton or Jackie Bailey perhaps say something in public to make an impact?
Oh yeah, I mean, both Cole-Hamilton and what's his name, the Tory, Murdo Fraser, will quite happily break every rule in the book if they can see an advantage, because they're going to need every advantage they can possibly muster come May.
Well, Alex Cole-Hamilton's is very likely to lose his seat. I can't see him winning his constituency again, because frankly, he's know that. So he might desperately need to make an impact. Murdo, when he matters to him, he'll get in on the list. He always does.
Well, has anybody been watching the Carry On with the Greens and Andy Wightman?
God.
Yeah. Andy Wightman has shot up in my estimation.
Oh, yeah. It should stand as an independent. There was reading something there online about that, how he should stand as an independent.
He's not. Where's he going to stand where he's got a chance of getting in against the SNP?
No,
he can't stand on the list because he's not a member of a party.
No. But you never know. Could rob the Green, or if there's a Green anywhere.
Well, how can he? He can't get on the list.
No. Well, how many of the not how many of the Greens go first past the post? None of them do. No, of course.
None of them. No, they're standing in. I think they're standing about 9 constituencies, just vanity. But the reality is they will win no constituencies. They'll all get on the list.
Well,
how did Margot MacDonald get in as an independent?
She stood for the seat.
Stood for the seat and won it because she was the sitting MSP.
Right. Okay. Just checking. I thought that was the answer.
But I can see the Greens with this. It's not just the Greens. It's infecting all the parties with this. Try to be subtle here. You know, with this kind of thing that's going on with your gender or sex. Mm-hmm. Or he just thinks you should take note of people's sex as opposed to gender. You know.
Well,
Yeah.
his position is, I mean, he got his knuckles wrapped for going to a debate
Yeah. A debate
about
on
the subject. The Greens are effectively saying you're not allowed to talk about this.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to inform yourself about this because we've made the decision for you.
But that's
be better.
over, isn't it? You're not allowed. You're not allowed. You're not allowed. That's all you get off the Greens. You're not allowed. And personally, I can put it down to it. I can't ride a bicycles, and I prefer people to foxes so they can get to.
What's your language?
I didn't say anything.
You slipped in an F there. Only Jimmy's allowed to swear.
No, it would have been charred.
Only Jimmy's
But-
allowed to swear on this program.
I think the Greens will take a hit on this in the election, mate. Because but if I was the ISP, you're targeting the Greens anyway, and absolutely every public meeting that you get to platformed anywhere around Scotland, you throw the gender thing in the face of the Green candidate, because the Green candidate is going to have to look down at the party line written down for them in front of them and read it out. And the party line is a nonsense, and most of the public know it is a nonsense. So you've just embarrassed the Green candidate and made sure that if anybody's second vote is swithering about, it ain't going to the Greens.
I don't understand why they would go public with it. Okay, privately they can do that, right? The position is we don't turn up at these things, guys, because it's too dramatic. But to go public with it, madness.
Especially
Money and power. Wee Paddy and that daft bint that sits next to him.
You mean
they've been making? They're sitting there thinking they're important. They're so far down the rabbit hole, thinking that they can shape the future of Scotland, that they think they can stomp upon people like Andy Wightman, and he's just going to wear it. Andy Wightman has more intelligence in the change in his pocket than sits between the lugs of Paddy Harvey. And the problem is Paddy doesn't like it.
It's got gravitas.
I think it shows a real problem, though, when we're going to lose somebody like Andy Wightman, who I don't agree with about everything, I should hastily add, but who is obviously a man of integrity and will fight for what he believes in, hell or high water. And we lose him because there is no way for him to get into the list. Am I right about that? Is there any way an independent can get on the list?
No, without a party.
No, you need to set up a party system.
A registered party.
It has happened once with the Pensioners Party. They got somebody in I think 2011, maybe 2007. But
there was also an NHS one, a woman, Rachel Bride.
Yeah, but they were basically quite big organisations. You know, they had there's no danger he could do it now. For example, he'd have they were set up a couple of years in advance, and they had national campaigning, and they had votes in virtually. God, they had constituency candidates standing, didn't they? I think the Pensioners Party got in because they had Big Caesar, Billy McNeil, standing in the East End of Glasgow, and he rattled in a hell of a lot of votes in the East End.
Is there any way Wightman could join the SNP?
But it was at any point until we find out just what the policy will be on that on trans.
Well, I mean, his stance on trans is we need a discussion. But I mean, is there any way? I mean, he couldn't join the Labour Party, could he?
He couldn't join the SNP either, mate. He's absolutely ridiculed their land reform policies for the last 10 years or so, hasn't he?
But would that preclude him joining?
It wouldn't preclude him joining, but it would certainly preclude him being chosen as a candidate or ever getting into Parliament as a member of the Scottish National Party.
I think that has to be looked at then. If there's no mechanism, I mean, we're not exactly overrun with good, principled MSPs. If there's no mechanism, there should be one found.
Well, if you look into the future, you've got the likes of Andy Wightman, and then you've got the SNP, which is basically independence movement. I don't really regard it as a political party as such in the way the others are. So when we ever get it, the likes of Andy Wightman, you're actually going to get a slap. You're going to get different parties. You can see that there'll be people in different parties that would align with Andy Wightman when it comes to land reform and social policies and green policies, you know.
I think it's a fallacy. If we were to get independence, I don't think the SNP would break up.
What
Never
about the
have
Greens?
done.
What about the Greens? There must be an awful lot of people who support the Greens and who are very pro-action on climate change. Must be horrified about what's happening with the Greens. They're probably only finding out now because of Wightman leaving just what the situation is.
Well, there you go. Maybe there'll be a wee revolution in the Green Party. I mean,
that would help.
Ross Greer is basically the wokest of the wokies as far as the Greens go, and he's got wee Paddy and he's Alison, whatever her name is. He's got them in his pocket. He's got them wrapped around his wee finger because they think Ross is just the coolest thing since sliced bread. So perhaps there'll be a wee revolution in the Green Party because, frankly, Ross Greer is the least cool thing I've ever seen in my life.
Don't you think?
Sorry, Phil, again.
Yeah. Well, Alison Johnson, right? She got a. Sometimes you can be in a party for years and you never get your own private members bill. So what does she come up with? You know, there you've got this private members bill. So she decides to come up with another bill to beef up the bill that's already there, looking after foxes. You know, you could have had social, she could have had housing, also many things that matter to the people out there. But no, let's look after brewing. I mean, sorry, at the end of the day, that God, they just
do you know how we get rid of fox hunting? We allow the hunts to hunt through the cities where all the foxes are hiding.
Yeah, that's where they are now. Yeah.
We allow them to charge down Princess Street and through people's back gardens.
I'll join the vigilante group against them.
Like they do in the countryside.
I'll just be sat up on Edinburgh Castle with a high-powered rifle, taking them out as a charge down Princess Street. I reckon I could get at least half a dozen, no bother. And I wouldn't need to be Lee Harvey Oswald. They didn't need to be hit 3 times.
When I lived and worked in the West Country of England, and I'm driving around here, there, and everywhere.
Oh, was this where you voted Tory?
Yes, this is where I voted Tory, and you know, the fox hunting down there is so annoying because, like, you know, you're a tradesman, you're trying to get from A to B, and suddenly the road's blocked because there's 40 horses all milling around and the people getting pissed, and they won't move.
I'd suggest it's a bit more annoying if you're a fox than if you're a tradesman.
Oh, but no, I'm just going from a selfish point of view. I'd order a snowplow and clear the way.
I think that's outrageous. That's England's heritage, you know. Redcoats. Okay, guys, unless anybody has got a funny to finish.
Yeah, anybody seen Gordysaurus popping up lately?
Yes.
Why don't they just lock him away somewhere?
Because they need some. No, I'm not going to say that. They need somebody with gravitas, and the Labour Party doesn't have anybody left.
Well, as soon as you mentioned Gordon, I suddenly think of Gorgeous George as well. So he seems to have run into a bit of problem after crashing through the border. He took a photograph of himself from the car coming across the border, and then he went to a football match, Queen of the South. And there was not supposed to be any audience at a football match in Dumfries at all. So the Queen of the South fans, he wasn't there as a Queen of the South fan, he was there because Dundee, his team was playing. And apparently he was there with his family, Galloway, as well. So there's a whole new stooshy stirring down there.
Has George got quite a few families?
Yes.
I remember.
He was there with the most recent one.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, he's a figure. I mean, I don't know. When I see George, George take that hat off, I just laugh. The guy's a buffoon. He really is.
I'm sorry. I will always remember him in front of the Senate committee in America.
Oh yeah.
And he did really well.
So
there will always be a wee part of me admires him.
Yeah, but well, see, at that point I already knew he was a thief and a charlatan, mate. So I wasn't impressed by that at all. He stole from a charity in Scotland years ago and ran away to England. So done a wee sordid deal with the Labour Party to keep it under wraps. But he's a thief and a charlatan. Always was, always will be.
Allegedly.
Do feel free to sue George if you ever see this. You thieving ballbag. And if you ever show up in Leith, I'll kick you up and down the street and prove it to everybody.
Okay, Jim. I think
On
we
that
got.
note,
I
that's a
think,
good.
I think we got that message, and I would like to give everybody season's greetings because I think I forgot yesterday, and goodwill to all men except
Aye.
obviously George.
I'd like to know why Sky News are announcing that things are happening at the end of the month when the end of the month is fucking Friday.
What's happening? Is something happening at the end of the month?
Let me see. It might be something to do with Europe.
Is that us renewing the old alliance at the end of the month?
But honestly, Sky News this morning were saying, "Oh yes, but the companies don't know how they're going to trade at the end of the month. The end of the month is bloody Friday."
The end of the month, just check your parachutes working.
Right, chaps.
Here's hoping that the Welsh case for the internal market bill gets fast-tracked into court and we've got something decent to talk about next week.
That's true. Aye, there is that. I'm not sure that we'll have anything to talk about next week. I fully expect Boris to forget to put the plug in and sink the whole of the UK.
Aye, forget to put time Bob in the meter to turn the clocks over to 1st of January.
I will go back to 1956. That would please Rees-Mogg. Okay, chaps, thank you for your company today. Jimmy Hutton, Charlie, also known as Phil Attridge.
Yeah, I'll somehow get that changed again.
And Stuart Lockhead.
Cheerio.
Norrie Stewart. Thanks for listening, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show today. And we'll catch you tomorrow. Cheers for now.